You're listening to Intentionally Catholic, a podcast about living our Catholic faith with joy and intention.
Welcome to Intentionally Catholic. I'm Dan Hansen, and as always, I'm joined by Father Ron Hutchinson.
Hello.
And today, Father, we're jumping into a topic that was suggested by a listener. We asked for input, and we received input. And this one's really, really simple. It's a simple topic, and yet it was crazy difficult for me to put together. Now, the listener wants us to discuss our favorite books or authors. And, what have we read that really changed our lives? What made us think more deeply? Or what do we go back to time and time again when we need a break? Maybe from the craziness of the world. I think that maybe we'll just go back and forth. I've got a lot, but I'm only going to talk about a few of them. And we'll just go back and forth and discuss this. And let's just start with you. What is one of your favorite authors or books, and why?
Well, I would say, number one, I have a favorite author, but of the favorite author, I have a favorite book. Okay. So I love Charles Dickens. I am a huge Charles Dickens fan. And I have all of the books in hardbound volume of Charles Dickens. And but I particularly love Oliver Twist. I don't know why exactly. I would say part of it is I just love how Oliver always seems to be happy. Oliver seems to find his way through messes and finds the silver lining in the dark cloud kind of idea. And so I'm just impressed by, how he treats everybody and how he kind of accepts people where they are and kind of loves them as they are. So that's I've said in other podcasts that, I'm a huge a Christmas Carol fan too. And I've read A Christmas Carol. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I read it every year. It's not a long one. It's not
that one's
book,
short.
and that's short. But there's just something about how all of Charles Dickens challenges us to be better people.
I know. I love Dickens. I was an English major. I don't think I've read Oliver Twist. I know I have.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I'll check that out. This is not one of my books, but we're talking Charles Dickens and Tale of Two Cities.
Another good one.
Absolutely love that. The redemption arc in that is absolutely, that one is really, really profound. I love that book.
Yes.
So let's go to my first book. I'm curious if you're familiar with it and know the author. I guess it would be an author, but it's a series of books. James Herriot. Are you familiar with James Herriot?
That's not one I am familiar with.
Well, Father Ron, you are missing out, and I am making your day. I'm making your year. This is one of those books. When I thought about my favorite books, like I said, I had trouble with this topic because I've got a lot of books that I like. And then, being an English major, there's a lot of books that I feel like I should say that I like. I should throw out A Movable Feast by Hemingway or the collected work, because I love A Movable Feast, and the collected works of Emily Dickinson. I love all those poems.
Okay.
But I wanted to be real here. So what I based it on was what do I most evangelize with? What books do I most evangelize and tell people that they need to read these books? And All Creatures Great and Small is a book by James Herriot. So James Herriot wrote this. He's a vet. He's got a whole series of books. He's writing. James Herriot is just a name that he chose to write under. His real name is something different. But it's set, this first book, All Creatures Great and Small, is set in 1939 in Yorkshire Dales. And he's just going through the countryside. It is the best thing I have ever read. All that series of books, the characters, the love that he has for these characters that he creates. And these are all drawn from people that he knew. His boss, Siegfried Farnan, is hilarious, absolutely hilarious character. And yet you just love him to death. The brother Tristan is Siegfried's brother, and he flits through the practice that they've got. The animals, the people of the Dales that he encounters, the farmers, and the mentality. There's so many things that you get from this. Are there deep lessons? I think there are crazy deep lessons, but that's not really what the books are about. Each chapter is its own short story to some extent. I mean, they build on each other to some extent, but you could honestly flip through the book and just grab chapter after chapter, bounce all over the place. There's not a story that unfolds, a greater story necessarily. It's just all these great short stories that all pile up. They are hilarious. They are, I mean, there's some, groaners is the wrong word, but it's animal practice. So, they're suturing up stuff, they're cutting stuff, they're bleeding a cow, and you gotta, sometimes I have to dance around the room because get a little lightheaded when blood gets brought into the conversation. These are absolutely astonishing books. They're happy, they're funny, they're sad. When if you need a break, like a palate cleansing from the world, and everything out there and stress, holy smokes, these are the books to get. All Creatures Great and Small, James Herriot. The kids have all read them, and now we can talk about them. We'll bounce them back and forth. And we bring up little stories, and all they need to do is drop a name or two, and we all know what we're talking about.
I've seen the.
It's a show.
It's a show. It's a British show, isn't it? A BBC show, and it's funny. It's one of the ones that's on my list to watch, and I have never started it. It's a series. I know that. And
there's an old version that from the 70s, the 80s, maybe, and then there's a new version. Okay. The old version is probably a little closer to the books, a little truer.
Okay.
The new one is still good. It's not quite as true to the books, but I don't know that completely matters. But the books are absolutely astonishing.
I will have to. You've just given me a suggestion that I'm now going to have to go into that. I think you do. There's a series similar to that I've read that's about and the worst part is I'm just thinking, Jan Karen. And it's all about this Episcopal priest in a town in the middle of North Carolina or something like that. And it just follows him. And it's many, many books, and they're all kind of hilarious. And it's the similar kind of idea. It's like you get to know these people in this town really well because, and so I've read the whole series, and I mean, it's not one that I'm recommending, but it's good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but it
gotcha.
It sounds like a similar idea. So,
I know this. Go ahead.
They're very lighthearted, and that's what I think is important. We need books sometimes that are lighthearted too, that don't require a lot of us.
No, these are great. I love them. It's funny. It's not a topic. When you tell people, it's about a vet in the 30s. Generally people don't just snatch that right up. My cousin, in fact, told me about him for probably 4 years. Going back a long time, and finally he just bought me the book and dropped it off one day. And I don't know how many people I have bought the book for. At least 7 or 8 people. I bought the book and just dropped it off because I know you're not going to buy it on your own. You're not going to read it unless I give it to you. And then after I've done that, the thanks are profound. So
Are you telling me what my Christmas gift is going to be?
Oh, Christmas gift. I didn't even think of that. Yes. So anyway, that's my first recommendation. What's your second one?
My second one, I really do like the classics. It's funny how I am hooked to some really, and they're always ones that have been turned into great movies and musicals, etc. I love Les Miserables. The book by Victor Hugo.
8,000 pages.
Oh yeah, love it.
You could beat off an intruder with that book. I
love the details. I love how talk about descriptions and getting into the scene, so to speak, and really getting to know the characters. Victor Hugo is incredible, the way he writes and the way he describes things. And it's an intense book. This is not, I don't read, it's funny. Many of my favorites are the longest, thickest books are, that it's not even that I go back to them and read them again and again, but I love them. And I possess a copy of them that is always there for me to see, and these are those ones that I always have hardbound copies of.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to read that one?
That one is
a tough one.
You know what's funny? I am one of those people that when I start a book, I just I'm voracious about reading, and I read every day. It's something that people often don't realize about me.
We didn't know you could read, Father Ron, to be honest.
I read every day. I typically read before bed, in bed. But I will, even if I get a chance at lunchtime to just pick my book back up and start reading a little bit. Yeah, it's amazing because Father David will often say to me, what book are you on? Are you still on blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm past that one. I'm three past that in the series. I like series. I like to read the same character over and over again. Right now I'm reading a series by Charles Todd, is an author. He writes about a vet from World War I in England. So he's in World War I in the French, in the trenches in France, it was a horrible war. And he comes back, and he's a former Scotland Yard inspector who's come back and now is back in Scotland Yard, but he is living with PTSD, and he's living with a voice of one of his former soldiers in his head. So it's very interesting how he navigates this, not trying to let everybody know about this voice he hears in his head.
What's the author's name?
Charles Todd.
All right.
So Ian Rutledge is the name of the inspector, and he comes back to, after a year at a facility, learning to deal with his PTSD, and needs to get back to work. And he's just solving cases one after another. They're always like these strange murders are in
and
the
that's
middle.
The book. Each book is a case.
Each book is a case, and it's always like a strange murder or something that's happened in some little town in England, and it isn't even in London. Many of them, because his boss is trying to get rid of him, so he gives him these cases that they get called into that it seems like they're no-win situations, and he always solves them. And it's always interesting how he solves them and how he puts things together. And
and that's not even on your list of books that you're recommending.
No, but it's not even on my list, but I just love it. I mean, I'm number 12 into the series, and I only started probably, I want to say, this fall at some point. So,
all right. So you're
Father David's, I was shocked at how many books I can get through in a period of time. So,
well, I like the murder thing, the whole mystery thing when they've got a protagonist that makes sense, an inspector. We loved Murder, She Wrote, that show when we were little. At some point, though, you're asking, wait a minute, everywhere this lady goes, there's always a murder. Wow, that's scary.
Don't invite her to your home.
No, she's not coming over for any holidays or visits of any kind. So my second book.
Your second book, yes.
My second book is, I'm going to get all holy and religious on us. Because I figured we probably should have some of those. No, this is one that maybe you're familiar. I'm going to wager that you're not. The Radio Replies, Fathers Rumble and McCarty. And McCarty. Two priests. Okay. These are crazy good books. There's 3 volumes, and basically they were the first, I believe it's Father Rumble was one of the very first radio apologists. I mean, we're talking 40s, I believe. So a long ways back. And he would take questions on air and then answer them. And the questions were always sent in, of course, letters at that point. And so that's what I'm gathering. So they've compiled these books. There's 3 volumes. Just in researching dates and stuff so we could talk about it, it looks like there might be 2 other volumes out there, a 4 and a 5. I got to look those up. But every time I buy these, because I bought these are books that I've given to people. I think you can find it on Kindle, but I've gone and you buy them, and they're old copies that you're getting. I mean, they were published 40s, 50s, so they smell a little funky. You got to put duct tape on all the binders on the edges and stuff to keep the thing together. I have read these things over and over. I think there's 4,000 or 5,000 questions throughout the 3-volume set, and basically there is nothing off the table here. The questions are really, really pointed. They're really blunt. They're from people who are they've got an axe to grind against the Catholic faith. And these priests, the answers are no punches, no holds barred. They don't pull any punches, but they're not rude. They're just completely, they lay it out philosophically. I am always impressed. I was a philosophy minor, and just watching the arguments unfold, the way they lay their argument out and their explanation, it's so, so profound. I mean, I got these books when I started reading my way into the church. The Catholic guy that I first started talking to that got me on this trail gave me, some like a big little milk crate full of books to read.
I remember you saying this. Yeah.
Yeah. There were these 3 books were in that crate, and I read them to death. And sometimes I get really mad at them because the books would, like I said, the priests aren't here in that book to make me feel good. They're not here to make me feel bad. They're here to tell me literally what they believe and what the Catholic faith teaches. And I can like it. I can not like it, but that's it. This is it. And I didn't like it sometimes. I was really annoyed. There were entire sections that I wouldn't reread those questions, because they really made me mad. But as time went by, you really appreciate the straightforward, honest answers. I love the fact that these are reasoned answers. It's so easy to think sometimes, not maybe from our point of view, because we come from a religious point of view. It's certainly easy from the world's point of view to believe that religion it's an act of faith. There's no reason behind it. There's no logic behind it. It's just you and your fairy tale guy in the sky, and you believe what you believe. And no, there are logical, reasonable. Now, there's always a point where we make a leap of faith, but that's in science too. That's in everything. But the way these guys laid these things out, Radio Replies, I think Catholic Answers has an updated version that you can buy. And I think they removed a number of the questions, because a lot of the questions are about characters and people living in the 40s and the 50s. They're on that scene, this philosopher so-and-so. I found those to be really interesting, but I think they pulled some of those out. But still the core of these questions are there. And if you're ever but I'm talking listeners too, in conversations with people and they challenge the faith and you'd love to feel like you've got a little better handle on it, these are old answers, but they're crazy good. So Radio Replies, Fathers Rumble and McCarty, 3-volume set. Check it out.
Never heard of that one.
Well, look at me. I am giving you gold, Father.
You
are.
You are.
Gold.
You and I are in totally different places on this. Funny, I am like, you just decided to throw faith. I mean, I'm going to throw faith out too, but mine is just, again, pleasure reading. I am going to suggest Father Brown, the complete collection by G.K. Chesterton. Okay.
Yep, those are good.
The Father Brown mysteries, my favorites. Love them. Love them again. He's a great character, great guy. I just, it's funny. It's not to say that I don't read stuff that's intense and hard and very, educational, but I am definitely a for pleasure reader primarily. When I have to read something that's work related, so to speak, I tend to try to just get it done as quickly as possible and get through it and be done with it. But if you were to ask me what I'm reading right now, so to speak, it's always pleasure reading. It's always pleasure reading. So G.K. Chesterton, Father
Brown Mysteries.
Yes, love them. Love them all, and love watching the shows about them too. So
all right. Yeah, I should clarify. This is maybe unfair, but I'm going to go back and those Radio Replies, that's not as heavy a reading as you're making me sound like I'm really brilliant and that I'm just jumping into these things. Like the question will be a 1-sentence question and the answers are usually like a paragraph.
Oh yeah. Okay.
5, 6, 7, 8 sentences. They're not pages and pages. You can read. I mean, each page of the book has probably 8 questions and answers on it. So it's really light reading in a sense.
Yeah,
like I can read like 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah. It sounds similar to a book that I've handed out quite frequently to people in Christian initiation. It's called Catholic Answers for Fundamentalist Questions.
Is that, who's the author?
I can't think who the author is right now, but I have copies of it sitting in my office that I just hand out.
Yeah.
It's a thin book, but it's sort of the similar idea. The questions, they're just one sentence questions, but in a just paragraph answer. Yeah.
So anyway, G.K. Chesterton, love G.K. Chesterton. My last book that I've got, I debated. I can't not say it. It's just kind of I don't need to explain much about it. The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. Tolkien. Okay.
Yeah, gotta love Tolkien. I recommend these all the time. My kids made them all read them. Tolkien was a devout Catholic. That's always really interesting to know about. I love the Narnia stuff, but I loved the fact that Tolkien, I was reading, we read a fair amount about it. And somebody had asked Tolkien, and I don't believe this is apocryphal. I think this is real, but they had asked Tolkien who the main character of The Lord of the Rings is. And he was kind of surprised. Well, the main character is God, clearly. And that took the interviewer by surprise. And it took me by surprise because I thought, I don't see that. Well, rereading the books, again and again and again, I realized there's so many times where Frodo, the character who gets the ring, and he's got to destroy this ring and stop evil from spreading through the world. There'll be all these things like, well, why did this come to me? It was meant to come to you. There's always this undercurrent that God put you in. That's what's being said. And it's so beautiful to see that regular people, that's what I love about those books, is regular people, we can get caught up in these huge things. We feel like the world around us feels crazy sometimes, and you feel like there's nothing you can do. And yet you're here for a reason. You're here at the time that you're in for a reason, and God is in control of what's going on. You just need to follow and do what you think is the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Tolkien, The Hobbit, all Lord of the Rings, all those. It's interesting. I would not have thought of God as the central character. And yet now that you've said that he's said that, the author, it makes sense to me because one of the things that's kind of always struck me is how, with all the craziness that they go through, it's just nothing is ever like a straight path to anything. It's definitely that old adage that's often equated with St. Augustine, God writes straight with crooked lines. And so, that is the story in many respects. God is kind of guiding them to this end, but it's always through the crooked lines. It's crazy. Yeah, it's kind of like wild how but I like the idea, like you were sort of saying, that there are so many people that love Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and are faithless people for the most part. They would not consider themselves to be people of faith. And yet Tolkien had the idea that he was writing something that was going to help people to understand faith at its very core, that God is in charge and God will win in the end, so to speak. And so, we get really freaked out about our world and our time and all that. And yet in reality, God has it all in his plan. All of it's in his hands. It's just that we're only seeing this much of it, a little bit of it. And it's a much bigger picture, a much bigger story and everything. And I think sometimes that's where we have to let go and let God, so to speak, recognizing that, we're only going to see a small bit of this story, like The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. You have to read a lot of those pages and get through a lot of stuff to get to the end, so to speak. And so, it's interesting. That is never a series that I have ever finished.
Oh, really?
I've watched all the movies.
Yeah, the movies were great.
I love the movies.
They did a good job with it.
But I have never finished the books. I have started, I can't tell you how many times, or picked up again after, literally found my bookmark at a page and started back again. And it's just too much for me or something. It's just too,
I get that.
There's just some books that for me, they don't keep me. There are too many details. There's too many new words. It's too many. And I'm like, I can't do it, So
I know it is something that not everybody's drawn to, but I love them. I love all the things you said. My other last thing I'll say about it, my favorite part about it, is just the beauty of the friendships that are described, and they're just wholesome friendships, old-fashioned, just regular friendships between multiple guys, just friends. And I love the fact that plays through, and you can see the beauty of that. So Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, that was my last one. Did you give a third one already?
I did. I gave Chesterton.
Chesterton one.
Yeah, and I could go
anything out. Okay,
to be honest with you, I can always go on and on and on. I mean, it's interesting. I am definitely a classics person. I mean, I told you I like Dickens. Okay, I also am one of those strange people who loves Jane Austen. I love Jane Austen's books, Sense and Sensibility, and the whole series. They're hard reads. They're very hard reads because you have to. It's a language thing, how they spoke then, and she writes how they really spoke, and you've got to also understand the culture and how they. You weren't. Often you had to figure out how to put somebody in their place without really being totally rude. And unlike
never
today,
mastered that.
Yeah, unlike today. So I love Jane Austen books. I've read all of them. It's funny. I'm a huge mystery person. Daniel Silva, Steve Barry, all of these authors that write about the same character, and they're always solving mysteries. I love a lot of mysteries. I love
Agatha Christie. Is that
not so much? Not so much.
Okay.
They're okay, but Daniel Silva is one of my favorites. He's an excellent writer, and he definitely is dealing with kind of a character that's more in kind of like our times, so to speak, but I would say more modern. So,
do you like books set in an older time period? Do you like modern stuff?
It's if I'm really honest about it, my favorite time periods are like Tudor England, Victorian England, Edwardian England. I definitely like something that's got some historical kind of mix to it. Those are some of my favorites. If they're set in a period and they connect to what was going on in that period of time, and yet at the same time, they're characters that are not real, that's some of the best stuff for me. Yeah, I love it. I like history. I'm a big history buff. I like learning about history. I like being able to throw things out at a cocktail party that I know that maybe somebody else doesn't know or something, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So right now you're reading those
Ian Rutledge, character by Charles Todd. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, right now I'm in the middle of something that's not light at all. In Cold Blood by Truman Capote.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay.
That's been on my list of things that I needed to get to because, people
I can
talk
tell
about
you're
it.
an
It's
English,
an important book, but
English
it's
major.
well written. Oh my goodness.
He was a great writer.
Written,
great
but
writer.
It is dark. It is.
Oh, yeah.
Dark is the wrong word. It's a real life event, and it's hard to fathom that. So I'm going to need to take a break and go to some lighter stuff just to get through. Anyway, those are some of our favorite books and authors. What about you out there listening? What are you reading? What can't you put down? What does Father Ron need to read next? Let us know. You can reach us at comments@icatholic.show. And as we wrap this one up, I'd like to encourage everybody out there, share the show with your friends. And then if you would be so inclined, subscribe to the podcast. And also check us out on TikTok, YouTube as well. All of that stuff. Just starting to put stuff out there, but you can find some good stuff and check it all out. All right. For Intentionally Catholic, I'm Dan Hansen.
I'm Father Ron Hutchinson. God bless.
Thanks for listening to Intentionally Catholic. If you like what you heard, please consider sharing our show with a friend. If you have comments, questions, or topics you'd like to hear discussed, please email those to comments@icatholic.show. And be sure to tune in next time for another episode.